A wave of political tremors is rattling the halls of Washington. What was expected to be a Republican-driven push for transparency into Jeffrey Epstein's crimes has instead triggered unexpected friendly fire, with Donald Trump's own name emerging repeatedly in newly released documents. Meanwhile, nearly 7,000 miles away, another major power is feeling its own form of pressure: China. Long portrayed as the inevitable global superpower, may now be confronting economic stagnation, demographic decline, and growing anxiety across Asia about Beijing's ambitions. Tonight, two stories of power under pressure: domestic upheaval in Washington and geopolitical recalculation in Asia. And I'm Salma El Fiki, and this is In Focus. The Washington Post reports that Republicans leading the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein have released 20,000 pages of documents, not to attack Democrats, but to prove their own transparency. Yet in the process, the committee exposed multiple references to Donald Trump and Epstein's past relationship. Trump has denied wrongdoing, repeatedly saying he never knew about Epstein's exploitation of the minors. And the White House says the emails prove absolutely nothing. But with subpoenas mounting and the MAGA base demanding full disclosure, GOP leaders now find themselves trapped between accountability and political survival, unsure whether this effort will end up protecting Trump or undermining him. Joining us now from Washington is Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of the Global Foreign Policy Center and a specialist in the U.S. political accountability in the Congress. Welcome, sir, and thank you so much for joining me here today at In Focus. Mr. Justin, let me ask you, Republicans launched this probe hoping to claim the transparency high ground. How did it turn into friendly fire targeting Trump?
Well, it's always good to be with you. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. It's been a nightmare actually for the administration. The reality is it's been poorly handled from a response capability. There's been a lot of concern both inside the party and inside the White House that every time they go reactionary in their responses, it backfires. This is an issue that was a mantra of Donald Trump going as far back as his presidency in 2016, and it was the MAGA base that was saying, "Look, call out, release the Epstein files. They're the ones who started the Epstein didn't kill himself mantras." And so what's happened is this has been a ticking, for lack of a better word, a ticking time bomb that was going to go off in the hands of the administration, whether they liked it or not. And the fact that they poorly handled it from a public relations and a political standpoint is just hurting them even more.
Can you share with us and tell us maybe to what extent does this document release genuinely change the political perceptions of Trump's past relationship with Epstein?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, we also have to remember that there's 10,000 or so documents that have been flowing over the past week.
20,000 apparently.
So it's really hard to say exactly to what extent it points the finger. Look, and let me be clear, there is no indication in any of the documents I've seen that President Trump is even accused of any wrongdoing as it relates to the Epstein case. What it does appear, though, is the mantra that the Trump administration and that President Trump itself is saying is like, I don't know the guy. Oh, we kind of lived in Palm Beach together. When I found out he was in the club at Mar-a-Lago, I kicked him out. it just seems that every time he says something, especially when he goes off the cuff in these press cackles, it comes back and it bites him. Catherine Levitt, the press secretary, the White House press secretary, has really no standing or credibility when it comes to the Epstein files, because she's basically been doing this. Well, there's nothing there, nothing to see here, go home. And the media, and quite frankly, now even more importantly, the Trump base is starting to, break away and saying, wait a minute, there is something to see here.
Yeah, keeps coming back. Democrats say the GOP is scrambling. Is this now, do you think, a public relations battle more than maybe a judicial one?
The great thing about politics, especially in the United States, is if things can change at any time. Mm-hmm. I know the Trump administration would love to divert away from the Epstein files, and we also have to remember this week that Speaker Mike Johnson is going to call for the vote on the discharge petition of the entire DOJ files. The reality is, are they scrambling? Yes. Unfortunately, for the Republicans and unfortunately for the Trump White House, they don't have anything to fall back on. The tariffs have been a disaster. The economy is feeling all kinds of pressure. Prices continue to go up in the grocery stores. The affordability issue has been a nightmare for the Trump administration. So for them to try and pivot to a subject that could benefit them, well, there's not really one out there. Even the situation in Venezuela has lost support for the American public, and immigration, which is pretty much how the Trump administration came into power here 9 months ago, that's not on the top of anybody's list anymore. In fact, it's probably number 5. Mm-hmm. So there's really no fallback for them.
Yep. Well, the MAGA base strongly demands full disclosure of the Epstein's files. Do you think the Republicans could face their own voters' anger if they slow down transparency efforts, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. At this point, absolutely. I mean, look, here's the problem for the Republicans and especially coming into the midterms. Remember, we are, less than a year away from a huge midterm election, which will be looked at as a mandate on the success or the failure of the Trump administration in the first 2 years of his second term. So what the Republicans have to deal with is, if you release all these files and it shows that Trump had knowledge and was playing political favorites with people from anybody from Ghislaine Maxwell to Epstein himself to how the case was handled, then it looks like that they were meddling on behalf and supporting a pedophile. If you don't release it and it does get out, then Trump then looks like wait a minute, why are you protecting a pedophile and a convicted sex criminal in Ghislaine Maxwell? There's nothing that good comes of this.
Okay. Well, Trump now is responding by calling for investigations into Clinton and others. Do you think this is a targeted deflection strategy or just an escalation?
It's a bad targeted. It's a bad escalation. It is a bad strategy. There has been no good strategy. And look, admittedly, I've not been a fan of the Trump administration, never have been, and I've been on this network many times being critical.
Yeah.
But I will always give it its due. What I will say, though, is in this case, there is nothing good. There's no good strategy for this. This is bad escalation. It's bad strategy. And all this is going to do is hurt those that have been trying to protect them. Look, we've seen what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Maybe.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has come out and said, look, you got to release these. And then Trump, because she signed on to the discharge petition, basically came out on a tirade yesterday on social media. We're going to see more of that. And what we're going to see is Republicans going, I don't care. I don't want to be on the receiving end of this. This is not going to be nearly the successful term that I think Trump has been expecting, and this could be a linchpin in it.
Well, do you think this backfire can maybe prevent the Republicans from concentrating on Trump's second-term agenda?
That's a really good question, and it's a complex question.
Hmm.
The thing about it is this this was made part of Trump's agenda when he walked in and he started talking about we have the Epstein files. When the Republican Trump administration made it an issue after they took office,
Hmm.
from the comments of Pam Bondi through the comments of Kash Patel and everybody else, when they made it an issue, they kind of pulled the pin on the hand grenade themselves. The issue is, are Republicans going to be able to withstand the pressure? Is this something that the Republicans hope that the American electorate has a very short attention span
Yeah.
for? Yeah, absolutely. That they hope that. Will they get it? I think it's unclear. I don't know. There's a lot of time here. So anything could happen in the next 11 months.
Mr. Justin, the bottom line, do you think, is this a temporary headache or maybe a growing legal and political risk for the president?
I think it's both. I think short term it's a migraine headache. Short term, I think this is a traumatic head injury. The reality is, can they escape the next 12 months and not hurting their chances of retaining both the Senate and the House and maintaining a majority there? That has yet to be seen. Again, there's 11 months, anything could happen. But my guess is how they handle this, especially after the discharge vote that moves forward. If Donald Trump continues his rants, if Donald Trump continues to throw out this red meat for his opposition, for his adversaries, then they're going to continue to pounce on it, and it's going to push back on the MAGA base. Look, the bottom line here is, if you're a Republican, you're running for office, do you want to back not transparency and corruption inside the White House, or do you want to back somebody who's protecting a pedophile and a convicted sex criminal?
Of course not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely not. That's a dumb thing moving forward. So yeah, this could be long term, but it's a definite headache now.
Well, Mr. Russell, thank you so much for your insights and for joining me here today. Political accountability in Washington rarely travels in a straight line, and this time it could prove costly. As Washington wrestles with a domestic political storm, Asia is wrestling with a strategic one. China, rising in the power for decades, may now be confronting the very pressures that could slow down its ascent. Let's move to Asia's shifting balance of power. And according to foreign policy, China will always matter in Asia economically, politically, and militarily. But Beijing's assertive behavior under Xi Jinping from the south of China Sea to Taiwan has intensified regional fears rather than strengthened the Chinese leadership. Even as China grows, its economy faces mounting debt, a shrinking population, and falling confidence among its own elites. Across Asia, nations are hedging, expanding security ties with the US and each other, creating a landscape where China is increasingly powerful yet distrusted. And from Europe's perspective on Asia's new strategic reality, we welcome Mr. Meher Nicholas-Furtzley, the director of the EU-ASEAN Forum. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me here today. Mr. Furtzley, let me ask you, has China's aggressive diplomacy ultimately weakened its influence in Asia, do you think?
I'm delighted to join you today from the border of Holborn in central London.
Thank you.
My answer would be the following, would be a cautious no. Cautious no.
Why?
Because, you have to understand who's talking, who's speaking, right? And it's, Foreign Policy magazine, a very, influential American journal published an article, I think yesterday in New York, along those lines. And it was interesting. That Foreign Policy magazine article was penned by a former high-ranking Singaporean diplomat, saying something along the lines of blah, 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 China, aggressive foreign policy, blah, 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 peak China. I disagree politely, so I disagree cautiously. And the reason why I disagree cautiously is we will have ebbs and flows, right, of a very long game. So what's happening now between Washington and Beijing is a reordering of the world. So they are partitioning the world, and the game they're playing is called the New Great Game, or the New Cold War. And unlike the war between Russia and Ukraine, they're not using ballistic missiles or bombs, right, or glide bombs.
Yeah.
The war is very much, played along technological, financial lines, right? So high tech,
Yes.
money is the name of that game, and it's a long game. So William Shakespeare, who lived for many years in the borough of Holborn in central London, he used to say in one of these plays, I think it's The Tempest, he used to say, "What is past is prologue." What does it mean, what is past is prologue? It means that all the events of the past 10, 15, 20 years have led us to where we are today, in that age of geoeconomics, where everything, finance, the economy, diplomacy, is defined by the Sino-American rivalry. And prologue means it just started. So it's just the beginning, the past 15, 20 years, of a new era, which may last another 60, 70, 80 years, right? So it's too early to say, is America aggressive? Is China soft? Or vice versa, was China too aggressive and America too soft? Whatever.
Well, actually, that
just
brings
the
me to
beginning.
my next question, which is about the regional balance and the power shifting. And the ASEAN states are quietly deepening the defense cooperation with Washington. Do you think, is this the regional balance, maybe, or do we call it power shifting?
Here also, I would say past is prologue, because, the Chinese had it, quote unquote, easy for a certain period of time. To make a long story short, let's say 15, 20 years. Because America and Europe neglected the Asia-Pacific area, their mistake. So it's not China's mistake, right? And one of the reasons why America and Europe neglected the Asia-Pacific area is they focused a lot on the Middle East, right? Iraq itself mobilized for 10 years trillions of dollars of resources from America, and they changed the regime in Baghdad, thinking that they would rebuild the Middle East. And they realized, and that's why Donald Trump was elected, they realized it was all propaganda, right? They wasted billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, for nothing. In the meantime, while the Americans were losing soldiers and money in Baghdad and Tikrit and Mosul, in the meantime, China was expanding its industrial technological reach across the Asia-Pacific area, across the world. And now the Americans have a wake up, they woke up, and because they woke up, thanks to Trump to a large extent, they're much more focused. So Trump is a very focused player, and is focusing aggressively, you are right, on the Asia-Pacific area. It's the main playground, and it will take time. Now, ASEAN is like the EU. In the 50s and early 60s, the ASEAN was an American creation. Because in the 50s and the early 60s, American foreign policy and American strategic thinking was much better, higher quality than today, right? Because of people like George W. Bush, Obama, Clinton, America collapsed, right? And so what I'm coming at is it's normal that America has a good relationship with most ASEAN member states, because after all, the Americans, they created ASEAN just like they created the EU back in the late 50s, early 60s.
Many are now believing that maybe the peak of China is still approaching. Do you think that's accurate or an exaggeration?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
No, I was just saying that many believe that the peak of China is actually approaching. Do you think that's an accurate statement, or it's just an exaggeration?
Cautiously, I would say it's an exaggeration. Why is it an exaggeration?
Yeah.
Because the game today, like I said, is not fought with missiles and rockets. It's fought with money and high-tech investment, right? So
Yes.
if we slice the world economy into 9 or 10 broad sectors, so the world economy, we slice it into 10 sectors. Today, technologically, China is ahead of America in 6 or 7 out of 10 sectors, which is really unbelievable. Civil engineering, architecture, renewable energy, high-speed rail, modern transportation, shipyards, building ships, be they civilian or military. Today China is ahead, right? So really China is ahead in everything except two or three. There are 2 or 3 sectors where America is still number one, and these would be microchips, and these would be aviation, building airplanes,
Yes. Yeah.
civilian and military. And these are really the 2 sectors where America is ahead.
Yes,
And the third one is AI, artificial intelligence. All the rest, all other sectors, China is way ahead. So of course, it's a wake-up call for America under President Trump. He is an economic nationalist, and he's trying now to catch up
Yeah.
with China.
With China.
So I wouldn't say China has peaked. I would say there are two giants in their sleeves, in their game. They both have strong cards and weaknesses. Once again, the strong cards of America are AI, are microchips, so really aviation. And another card is the size of the US consumer market. And when he negotiates with Asian countries, with Europe, he uses that card as a weapon. So when he talks to Malaysia, Indonesia, Germany, Trump says, "Oh, you want that? You want access to that huge American consumer market? Okay, you will have to make concessions."
How would you think Beijing's economic slowdown affect maybe Xi Jinping's global ambitions?
Yes, the Chinese economy is slowing down. China has 2 big issues they need to fix, and they're difficult to fix. The first one is the lingering effects of the gigantic real estate finance bubble. It's an incredibly big bubble. It's very dangerous for the Chinese economy. They've tried for the past 6, 7 years to fix it, and they've been unable to do so. Now, the bubble hasn't burst, but it's a big weight on China's economic and financial shoulders. But so far, it hasn't exploded. So it's a pain for China, but it's a pain they kind of were able to absorb. So let's say that it's okay. But there's another problem China has, which will happen in 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? It's a demographic problem, which will have...
In what sense demographic, sir?
Because Chinese women don't have children.
Okay.
But the time lag, so the time lag is long. So between the moment Chinese women don't have enough children and the moment it becomes a big problem for the national economy, you can have 30, 40 years. And so that moment is coming, right? So in 6, 7, 8 years, China will have a huge demographic problem, which will have an impact on pensions. So there will be too many old people in China and not enough young people working. Paying the pensions for the old timers, the retirees.
Yes.
But that is in 8 years, 9 years, and they're working hard to fix it. So when I'm coming at, yes, China has problems. The Chinese economy is slowing down. The main ace in China's game is the New Silk Road. Because with the New Silk Road, gigantic, Belt and Road, they are bringing together many sectors where they are ahead of the curve. Engineering, construction, energy, transportation, high-speed rail. So all these Chinese sectors where they are the world leaders, they are deploying the world over in that gigantic, Belt and Road, New Silk Road.
Yeah.
And really, they need money for that. And maybe in the future, they will have less money than in the past to fund these multi-trillion dollars per year of infrastructure investment. But even when you take that into account, the New Silk Road is still an amazing ace in the game of China, in that global rivalry. And that's why, for example, President Trump, when he went to Korea 3 weeks ago, and Japan, he focused relentlessly on shipyards. He told the Japanese and the Koreans, we need you to come to Pennsylvania, Washington, Baltimore, New York, and build and expand American shipyards because we need that in that strategic fight against China. So what I'm coming at is, in spite of all the problems they're facing, the Chinese economy is growing quite fast because in economics and finance, everything is relative. So now, for example, the UK economy and the French economy and the German economy are growing at 0% per year. The American economy at 2% or 2.5%. China is growing at 5.5%. It's not bad.
Mr. Ferzi, let me ask you and move again to my other question. China is the top trading partner for Southeast Asia. Why does mistrust remain so high? Can you tell us?
Why do what?
I'm asking you, China is the top trading partner for Southeast Asia. And why does mistrust still remain so high?
Well, it's natural. So it's natural that China would be a big trading partner with its neighbors, right?
Yes.
Even though there are rivalries. So let's take, for example, Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
So you could say Vietnam, it should be in America's camp against China because there are islands in the South China Sea, which are contested aggressively between the Chinese Navy and the Vietnamese Navy. My enemy's enemy is my friend. Vietnam should be siding with America. In reality, Vietnam is neutral when it comes to finance and trade.
Yeah.
The Vietnamese are very happy to trade with China, and they don't want to stop trading. So they don't want to sacrifice their strong trading relationship with China for the sake of America. And that is the position of most ASEAN countries. Even when they deepen their military relation with America, which is, for example, the case of Thailand, is deepening its military cooperation with America. But at the same time, Thailand, just like neighboring Vietnam, they're happy to trade with China. Why? Because China changed. China is no longer a cheap manufacturing base, right?
Yeah.
China today is exporting advanced consumer products to Vietnam and Thailand. And so it's a mutually beneficial relation. And what they want, these ASEAN countries, they want to stay neutral. So even when they buy F-35s from America and they have US bases physically present, at the same time, they want to keep on trading with China. So it's a delicate balance. It's really about neutrality. But I think that trade flow, and more important than trade, investment, Chinese investment flows, so building factories, building highways, building airports in Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam. Who's doing it today? It's Chinese companies, much more than American companies. And it will take years for American and European companies to be on par with China in their capacity to build high-speed rails. You know, if you are the prime minister of Vietnam, if you want a high-speed rail connecting, let's say Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, the only companies who can do it are, Japanese, Chinese, German, let's say, and the only companies who can do it at a competitive price are Chinese. So basically, if you are the Vietnamese government, you will go to China.
Well, Mr. Meher Nicholas Fertzli, thank you so much for helping us understand this critical moment in Asia's geopolitical landscape. Thank you. Well, power confronts pressure in Washington and in Beijing, and the choices made now by leaders, lawmakers, and Asian capitals will shape whether the world moves towards stability or deeper confrontation. And I'm Salma El Fiki. Thank you for joining and for watching us here on In Focus. Good night.